the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people.
Today on Double Take, were Scott Adams' comments really racist? Scott Adams, the cartoonist of the famous Dilbert cartoon, a cartoon that I enjoy, one that I found in my childhood, very funny about office politics. I've worked in corporate environments like the one that inspired the Dilbert comic book, so I have a lot of empathy for Dilbert and the shenanigans that go on in his office place. Scott Adams had to go through that environment and suffer through it really until he discovered, you know what, I don't have to. I can write comics about this BS, make my own money, syndicate this, get out of this environment, and I'll be good. So I respect Scott Adams for finding a way out of the corporate rat race, because if you love rat races, and it is rat race, life is a rat race, being a cartoonist is a rat race too, but choose your own rat race, you know what I mean? And he chose a good one. He's written several books, loves logic, I love logic too. But Scott Adams' logic fails very regularly, and on one topic in particular, race, he simply refuses to use it. I don't know why. I don't listen to enough of Scott Adams' podcast or YouTube series to understand where his prejudice comes from. But it's there, it's been obvious. One of my colleagues actually gave me his book, Loser Think, as a gift once, knowing I really love logic. But guess what? I didn't like Loser Think because Scott Adams has a weird way of using victim mentality and passive aggressive manipulation gaslighting techniques to communicate. His cherry picking is quite unbelievable. And his book Loser Think uses some of these techniques in its presentation, although the content of the book is quite good. I did skim it. It does have a good structure, good content. The parts I did read. So I'm not knocking it. I'm not going to tell you not to read. In fact, I'll put a link in the description if you want to buy that book, buy it. And I wish it was an affiliate link, but it probably won't be. But if I can get an affiliate link in there, I will. And I'll make money, and I'll help this Scott Adams make money, whether he's a racist or not. But that's what this video is about. Is what Scott Adams said racist? Do we have to listen to everything he said in context? And we're going to do that together, and I'm going to provide a commentary on why it is racist, why it's not racist, and yeah, just both sides, because I love arguing both sides. And at the end, I will share why the arguments that he makes simply make black people suspicious of white people. Because at the end of the day, there is a history of racism by whites against blacks. And that history has led blacks to be very defensive around white people, whether white people know it or not. That's the subject of another video. What Scott Adams is saying is basically the biggest fear most black people have. But let's just get into the video, and we'll talk about that as we get there.
Well, Rasmussen poll had a provocative little poll today. They said, do you agree or disagree with the statement, it's okay to be white?
All right, first of all, what does that even mean? Is it okay to be white? People are white. That's a fact. Is it okay? Yeah, it's okay. It's a fact. It doesn't matter what color people are. In terms of, is it okay to be that? It's not even a sensible question, but let's go on.
That was an actual question.
Yeah, it's a dumb question.
Rasmussen asked, white and black voters, and probably others, do you disagree or agree with the statement, it's okay to be white?
How do you disagree or agree with a statement that's that dumb? I don't know what I would put for response to that type of dumb, idiotic question, but let's continue.
26% of blacks said no. It's not okay to be white. 21% weren't sure. Add them together, that is 47% of black respondents were not willing to say it's okay to be white. That actually, that's like a real poll.
So he said 21% of black respondents said, I don't know. Disagree, disagree, I don't know. What does this question even mean? 26% said they don't agree it's okay to be white. But then he added both numbers together and said 47% of black people say it's not okay to be white, or they're not willing. He actually reframed it. He said they're not willing to say it's okay to be white. But if 21% are saying I don't know, it's not that they're not willing. We don't know why they said I don't know. So it's more like 26% aren't willing to say it. In fact, they're saying they disagree that it's okay to be white. Now, what are those people's, what does that mean? So actually, before I go there, so just right off the bat, he's creating a 47% number, but that 47% number, the way he's framing it, is completely based on a lie. Essentially, he's lying. He's basically just lying because he frames it in a way that is not accurate. So that's something to point out. Next is with the 21% who said I don't know, is it okay to be white? If you're asking a black person, is it okay to be white? What does that mean? Does that mean I put white paint over my skin and I tell people I'm white? Is it okay for me as a black person to say I'm white? I disagree with that. I don't think I should be going around in whiteface. So maybe that's what those black people who said that they don't agree that it's okay to be white. Or maybe they believe it's not okay to be white because they don't like white people. That's racist. But there's two sides to how the 26% might be responding. Some of them might be responding, I don't think it's okay to go in whiteface. Some of them might be responding, I don't think it's okay to be white in general. And what does it mean to be okay to be white? Are they talking about white people, period? Or are they talking about white supremacists? So there's a lot of follow-up questions. We'd have to go to that 26% of the population to really understand what they're talking about. Regardless, it's an idiotic question to begin with. It's very dumb. Don't know why they asked it. But let's go on.
This just happened.
Yes, it did.
Did you have any idea? Would you have imagined that that could have happened? So I realized, as you know, I've been identifying as black for a while.
I don't know about what he just said. He's been identifying as black for a while. Is he lying again? I think so.
Years now, because I like to be on the winning team, and I like to help. And I always thought, well, if you help the black community, that's sort of the biggest lever. You know, you can find the biggest benefit. So I thought, well, that's the hardest thing and the biggest benefit. So I'd like to focus a lot of my life resources in helping black Americans. So much so that I started identifying as black to just be on the team I was helping.
Okay, so I can tell you for a fact, Scott Adams does not identify as black. As a matter of fact, he hasn't even had like a black character in his comic strip Dilbert until the last year. And that character identifies as white, it so happens. So when he says this stuff, I don't know why he's saying it, what the point is. But one thing I will say is his argument about helping black people as lever to do good in the world and how that could help others does make some sense. If you think about Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movement started off with black people, but in the end it ended with helping the poor of any race. And part of the reason is because black people were disproportionately impacted by poverty, and he wanted to help all poor Americans because he saw that poverty firsthand as a black person, but knows that even if you're white, Hispanic, any other race that's poor, you got problems. So he was trying to help poor people. If you just so happen to be helping black people, you're probably helping poor people, and by extension, any other person. And you see that the problems that are starting to hurt Americans that were only black problems in the past, things like single parent households, drugs, it used to be crack, now it's fentanyl, shootings, murders happening. It used to be gang shootings. Now you have all these mass shootings with incels and random people that are just angry with society for some reason, or trying to fight off shape-shifting lizards or whatever is going on. But these people who are very angry people, these are now Caucasian people. this increasing single-parent household, increasing drug overdoses, increasing violent crimes in white communities. And had those things been addressed in black communities in the past, maybe that would have been a lever to prevent those broader trends spreading more broadly. So what he's saying is logical. I get where he's coming from, but he's never helped black people as far as I know. I've never seen it. He's written several books, not one about the black community. So doesn't even have black characters in his comics. So yeah, very interesting. I don't know why he's presenting himself this way, but let's see if he makes that clear.
But it turns out that nearly half of that team doesn't think I'm okay to be white. Which
he said nearly half that team doesn't think it's okay. It was 26% said they disagree with the statement. We don't know what that means, but by the way, if 47% said I don't know or disagree with the statement, that means the majority of blacks agreed that it's okay to be white, whatever that means. 53% would have agreed, so the majority would agree. But he's focusing on the minority. Let's continue.
Of course, why I identified as black, because so I could be on the winning team for a while. But I have to say, this is the first political poll that ever changed my activities. I don't know that that's ever happened before. Normally you see a poll, you just look at it and you go, whatever. Oh, this is interesting what other people think. But as of today, I'm going to re-identify as white because I don't want to be a member of a hate group. I'd accidentally joined a hate group. So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group.
So he wants to identify as white. First of all, he is white. So, I mean, I'm glad he's identifying as who he is. I think we should all accept who we are. And you don't have to ascribe meaning to that in any significant way. It's just recognizing facts as they may be. But in any case, what I find particularly interesting is he's defining blacks as a hate group because there is a segment of the population, 26%, that disagrees with the statement, it's okay to be white, which I don't know what that statement even means. Now, Scott Adams did not make a similar video when there were polls about Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matters, you see 80% plus of the black community agrees that Black Lives Matter. And you'll see it's a split in the white community. Now, I think you could say, well, half of the white community doesn't think Black Lives Matter, so that's a hate group. And I know there are people who say that. But for Scott Adams, if he wants to make this argument about black people, he would need to make the same argument about white people. And if he doesn't like it when 26% of people say it's not okay to be white, even though we don't know what that means, and there are close to half of white people who don't believe Black Lives Matter, and he's joining that group, that's a more hateful group according to Scott Adams' own logic. According to his logic, that would be a hate group. I think that what he's talking about in defining hate groups is completely idiotic. So it's not really worth talking about whether something is or is not a hate group because that's not what a hate group is. That's a dumb definition. But what we see is that Scott Adams is, and so the way I interpret this is Scott Adams is presenting some of his emotions about black people now. This isn't about logic. This is about emotions and how he feels. So let's find out how he feels.
It's a hate group, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the fuck away. Wherever you have to go, just get away.
Get away from black people. Oh my God. Damn, this was racist. Okay. All right. All black. Notice he didn't say get away from black people who don't think it's okay to be white. He said get away from black people, period. He said get away from black people, period. So that is the definition of racism. So let's continue.
There's no fixing this. this can't be fixed. Right? This can't be fixed.
He said there's no fixing this. This can't be fixed, meaning that there's no changing to the situation. Often racism is based on the idea that there are certain characteristics that are immutable, that aren't changing. There's no way to fix them, things that are wrong with a certain population. So Scott Adams is saying there's something that's broken with blacks that's not fixable, and that whites should get away from black people. This is textbook racism. So usually there's like some more nuance, but this is just basically he's just reading the definition of racism. I don't know why, but again, not based on logic. This is based on his feelings. I don't know why, but okay, let's keep going.
You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, I have a very low black population, because unfortunately there's a high correlation between the density. This is according to Don Lemon, by the way. So here I'm just quoting Don Lemon.
Hey, I'm just quoting a black guy who said this, so I'm not saying anything wrong. I just want to be very clear. Hey, I'm sure whatever you're about to say from Don Lemon is probably true. I'm sure there's something worthwhile. I'm not going to even contest it. But this is what I will say. The fact that you're doing it kind of shows your hand that you know that what you're about to say, even if it's right, your broader argument is completely BS, and you're trying to bring a black person in to clean it up. But
and when he notes that when he lived in a mostly black neighborhood, there were a bunch of problems that he didn't see in white neighborhoods. So even Don Lemon sees a big difference in your own quality of living based on where you live and who's there. So I think it makes no sense whatsoever as a white citizen of America to try to help black citizens anymore. It doesn't make.
So, one of the interesting things is, if you're in a black community, it's very common that there are more problems in black communities than white communities. Like if you were to look statistically at a population level and just look at black communities, white communities, you could literally point out like specific things. Now, all the problems in black community you'll find in a white community and vice versa. But one of the reasons why black people don't move into communities that are quote unquote white, in part is because they're afraid that if they move into those communities, their neighbors will be people like Scott Adams who say, hey, black people are bad news. And that makes them very uncomfortable. Are these people who are going to be calling the cops on them for no reason, right? You have the majority of black people who don't have any issue with the statement, it's okay to be white. I'm sure the majority of black people are totally fine with white people being white. It doesn't even make sense, that question. But the history of racism just makes a lot of black people wary of all white areas because there's a fear that those white people are racist and that, their self-segregation is a result of their distaste for black people. So black people just don't move to those neighborhoods, even if they are safer. It's crazy. People would rather live in a welcoming place or a place where they're not seen as a threat than to have more safety. And there's some nuance to that, but I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, this is pretty psycho.
Sense. It's no longer a rational impulse. And so I'm gonna back off from being helpful to black America because it doesn't seem like it pays off. Like I've been doing it all my life, and the only outcome is I get called a racist. That's the only outcome. It makes no sense to help black Americans if you're white. It's over. Don't even think it's worth trying. Totally not trying. Now we should be friendly. Like I'm not saying start a war or do anything bad. Nothing like that. I'm just saying get away. Just get away. And
so you should smile as you walk away from black people when you see them. Be friendly.
Here's my take on all of it. Everybody who focuses their priority on education does well. If anybody in the black community focuses on education, they'll do well as well. Because
It's interesting. He's saying if anyone in the black community focuses on education, they'll do well. The way he's saying it is as if there is no one in the black community who has focused on education. It's true. Black Americans are less likely to be enrolled in college or have a bachelor's degree in comparison to white Americans. There is a significant gap between these two groups. However, they both have one thing in common. In both black American populations and white American populations, there are more people who are not college educated than people who are. He's kind of categorizing all black people as if they're all people who should be avoided and white people should get the F away from them. This is absolutely insane. And the thing is, sometimes you could be like using hyperbole to make an argument about something, like you could be exaggerating, but there's nothing here that's logical to come away with what he's exaggerating, like what is the point he's making. I think there are some things that he's saying that I understand, and I'm going to expound upon those, but just generally, this is bad. I don't know, it's just shocking. Honestly, it's shocking.
the system allows that. If they don't, I can't make that my problem anymore. It just can't be my problem. It can't be my problem if the solution is so clear, so available, and people don't want to take it. It's just not my problem anymore. So I resigned. I resigned from the hate group called Black Americans, according to the Rasmussen poll. 46% of them don't think white people are okay, just being white. And there we go. You didn't expect that today, did you? But the most helpful thing I can do is to say I'm not going to help. Do you understand that? Continuing to help in that sort of, classic, oh, let me help you, give you a lift up, give you a hand, mentor you, hire you, prefer you. I'm going to stop all of that. I'm done with all of that. Yeah, no, it didn't work. The only thing that will work is to say, you got to fix your own problem. You know how to do it. Everybody else figured it out. I'm not going to speculate, why you're not doing it. I'm not going to speculate why there's a difference. I'm just going to say it's available to everybody. You just pick it up. It's free money. Focus on education, and you could have a good life too. But those who don't want to focus on education, you just need to get away from them. Just get as much distance as you can. And I'm also really sick of seeing video after video of Black Americans beating up non-Black citizens. I realize it's anecdotal, and it doesn't give me a full picture of what's happening. But every damn day I look on social media and there's some Black person beating the shit out of some white person.
What social media channel are you looking at? Now, this is something I actually have seen on, I know someone who's leans very conservative, is a Caucasian person. And he posts a lot of videos like the one that's being described here. I don't see them anywhere but on his channel. And I anticipate that it's kind of like something that conservatives really enjoy. And that, when I say conservatives, I don't mean all conservatives. I mean a percentage of conservatives enjoy sharing videos of Black people committing crimes, including beating up on each other or people of other races. And it's disturbing stuff. It's like, why are you posting this? What's the point does it serve? We know crime is a problem. I think one of the things with crime is, I can't, as an individual, I can't do anything about crimes that happen outside of my sphere of influence. And my sphere of influence is relatively limited, unfortunately. That's something that interests me, but it's not something that I focus on. And I think that's true for a lot of people. People who are around criminals probably typically try to avoid those criminals, even if they do know them, because they don't listen. Have you ever talked to someone who breaks the law? They are breaking law because they don't care about rules. They don't care about what they're supposed to do. If they did, then they wouldn't be breaking the law. And that's very frustrating. So to see those videos, I'd be frustrated too. I don't know. I think one of the things I'd like to hear Scott Adams saying is, hey, please stop sharing those videos unless you're sharing it for a purpose. What's the purpose? Is there something we can do together? A neighborhood watch, whatever, blah, blah. I don't know what the solutions are, to be quite frank. But if it's just being shared just for entertainment purposes, the entertainment is to reinforce negative stereotypes.
I'm kind of over it. I'm over
just hearing about it.
So I quit.
I quit too.
And it feels good not to be in a racist hate group anymore. So I'm now independent, not a member of any group. I do not align with any group. Not the white supremacists.
He said he's white again. Just remember that. Now he's saying he's not a white supremacist.
Not the black racists.
And not the black racists. Okay. What a weird video. What a weird video. What a weird video. I mean, it's the definition of racism. I already said it. I'm not going to say it again. But this is what I will say. If Scott Adams had actually been working in the black community, trying to help black people, and he had absolutely no success after 20 years of trying, then I would totally get where he's coming from. But that's not his experience. That's no one's experience. There are people who are helping, but they're not helping as many people as they'd like. There's people that are slipping through the cracks, and it's very frustrating. It's very hard to seemingly be working on challenges that don't have to be challenges. I actually have a lot of empathy for that point of view, because I know people who work in those communities. I've volunteered in those communities myself for brief stints of time. And it is hard to work with people when you encounter them who don't want to be helped. But there are a lot of people who invite the help, welcome the help, love the help, need the help, use the help when they receive it. So, again, he makes arguments without logic, without nuance, without facts. They're just based on his emotions. Again, I don't know where they're coming from. I'm very curious. I'd like to know. But what I do know is this. There are a lot of people who feel the same way Scott Adams does. I grew up in a community that was a benefactor of white flight after riots in the 60s. So I have met a lot of racist white people. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying white people are racist. I'm saying I've met white people who are racist. How do I know they were racist? Because they said they were racist. Or because their children told me they were racist. Or because their friends told me they were racist. That's what happens when you grow up in a white community. You get to know white people. And the views that Scott Adams has are views that I've heard before. So while it's shocking, it's not shocking. You know what I mean? Like it should not be happening in some ways because it's not logical. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people who aren't logical. And when you are in these neighborhoods where there aren't any black people, there's no empathy for black people by different pockets in that community. There's people who they have never put themselves in the shoes of another person. And because my family is black and I know people of all types of socio-economic, demographic backgrounds, I can imagine my life in a different circumstance, not just because I can think about it, but I've literally seen it. People who are just like me but have totally different life outcomes. And there is something that Scott Adams says is true. He says about education, but I would say education is part of it, but a lot of it is cultural. And it's not culture as a whole, but family cultures. And and those cycles and small community cultures, it's more nuanced. You can't really paint a brush over a race because whether it's black people or white people, because black people and white people basically share the same culture. They're Americans. We're talking about America. Rock and roll, rap music, house music, this is all part of culture. These are all things that black people and white people create, consume together. Dancing, vernacular, language, all shared by blacks and whites. But there's nuances in the community level and family level that can be different. Some of those break down by race, but you can't paint any race with any broad brushes. This is just too many different types of people. And while Scott Adams is trying to make some type of point, I don't know what it is. There's so many racist people that they won't be able to pick out any type of point other than, I should continue being racist, because that's just something that's very common. So it was a very interesting video. I was curious. I was like, nah, it's probably not. He probably didn't say anything that racist, but he really said textbook racist stuff. You couldn't be more racist than that. I don't know. I'm sad, to be honest, because I'm wondering if this guy is ever going to actually develop some logical views on this topic, because it's just disappointing when you see people who are smart in one area be so idiotic in another. Like, he's suffering from the Kruger-Dunning effect. Like, race is not his area of expertise. It clearly isn't, and he doesn't desire to, get better there. I don't know. A ramble, if you will. But if you have any comments, please leave your comments. What did I miss? What did I say that's wrong? What's incorrect? Please correct me. I don't care. And if you're interested in my thoughts on other topics, musings, reactions, if you want to hear my view on something, please leave a comment. Let me know what. And I'll see you next time on Double Take. And now, your moment of Zen.
The most helpful thing I can do is to say I'm not going to help.